I'm going to stall for a bit while I wait to see if the streams actually start everywhere. I was mentioning to Tayfun before we started that it's a little bit hit or miss these days if stuff starts right away nice and easily, or if there are issues. So fingers crossed. I don't see anything yet, which is a little bit worrying. Oh, wait. One channel is going. What about YouTube? What if you went as well? And great, we are also live on YouTube. Fabulous. It worked.
Yay.
Welcome to Rasa Office Hours. Today, so feel free to start popping your questions in the chat, and we will definitely keep an eye on them. But while we're waiting for folks to join, formulate their question, do you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what it is that you do at Rasa, maybe some of the things that you've been working on recently that you can talk about that you're most excited about? Yeah, just help folks get to know you.
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. So I'm Tayfun. I started working at Rasa about 2 months ago. So I'm fairly new. Have a newbie's eyes on the product and everything else, probably. So I'm in Enable Squad,
Mhm.
as we call it. We are responsible for the open source part of Rasa. So when you go to GitHub/RasaHQ/Rasa,
Mhm.
we're kind of responsible for the whole code base there, the open source software part. As you know, the other part is Rasa Enterprise or
Mhm.
Rasa X. So another team looks at that, but we are fairly close. We're working together a lot. Yeah. So what have we been working on lately? We did have Rasa 3.0 release fairly recently, a few weeks ago. And now basically just like fine tuning it, adding new features, fixing bugs around it. And it's coming towards the end of the year. So we've been planning what we will be working on next year,
Mhm.
what kind of features that we want to develop, what our customers are wanting.
Mhm.
So just planning around all those kinds of tasks that we want to do in the coming year.
Everyone loves planning. I don't think that's true, but it's very important. And for those of you who are like, 2 months, wow, is Raza hiring? Well, we sure are. So we've grown quite a lot. I think this year we hit 100 employees. Wow. And we have a really nice blog post about it that I want to say Linda wrote, but don't quote me on that, on our blog. But we have a lot of open roles. I don't know if any of these are on your team or not. We do have a developer advocate role that's on my team, if any of y'all speak Mandarin. Yeah, so lots and lots of open positions. If you are interested, most of the software engineering positions are going to be in either the UK or Germany. So yes, if you are interested in, if you're looking for jobs and you're interested in Raza, I encourage you to apply.
Yeah, it's a remote first company as well. So not just UK or Germany. So if you're interested, have a look at our job postings.
Mhm.
I think we're always looking for really good people.
Yeah,
And yeah, let us know if you have any questions as well.
definitely. Yeah. Hi, Amina. Yeah, so I guess again, just as someone who's come to Raza a little bit more recently, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe your onboarding experience? What was it like to get started at a remote first company? Because I still think it's, I mean, even with the times, I think it's fairly new for particularly a company of roughly this size and the stage in the startup development cycle to be remote first. So what does that look like? What was it like? Like if you didn't just like go in the office and they handed you a badge, what was the process?
Sure. So this was not my first remote first company
Mhm.
work experience that I had. Like I think 6 or 7 years ago, I worked at another company
Mm.
remotely. Yeah, so just even before like this whole remote thing started getting popular, I had a work experience like that.
Mhm.
And of course, with the coronavirus situation, I think a lot of companies started working kind of remotely.
Mhm.
Um, so I kind of knew what to expect.
Mhm.
But coming to Rasa and the onboarding experience was very smooth. So I was really happy with that. I was surprised how smooth it was. And of course, it all, a lot of it depends on the people. The people are great and they are making sure that things are working fine.
Mhm.
But basically, there's a lot of, it boils down to a lot of communication,
Mhm.
um, setting expectations, setting your uh, work environments as good as possible. So when I joined, before starting work, I got my laptop ordered. I had like a swag delivered with like um, the hoodie that I'm wearing now and a few other stuff like laptop sleeves and everything else. So I was kind of set up for working immediately, even
Mhm.
immediately. And then the documentation is very good at Rasa, so I could follow and set up my environment fairly fast. So that was quite nice to see. And of course, like people, as I said, are very friendly. I think I asked like so many questions in a lot of different channels, like Slack channels, other communications channels, or on GitHub. I create many tickets as well,
Mhm.
and everything was fine. Everything was really working smoothly. So yeah, basically that was my experience. I think it's um, a bit hard when you're working remotely um, to kind of socialize with
Mhm.
your colleagues,
Yeah.
like put a face on their names,
Mhm.
like. But we do have a lot of initiatives around that. For example, we have coffee chats.
Mhm.
So when you or lunch chats, where you meet with a lot of different people while you're having drinking your coffee or lunch, and we do have a lot of different events. Most of them virtual at the moment because of the latest
Yes. For
situation,
reasons,
like
yeah.
yeah, reasons. But yeah, everything is fine. I did meet a few of my colleagues when we rented a shared office and then we worked together for a few days. So yeah, there's that as well. So there's a lot of tools that you can actually use to kind of get to know your colleagues and work together.
Oh. Ah, I hope that was a good little, peek inside what it's like starting at Raza. All right, we got some great questions to kick us off. So Amina wants to know, what are the KPI, key performance indicators, for anyone watching who hasn't heard that term before, to consider to evaluate chatbot performance before the production launch? And second part of the question, if there are two prototype chatbots to compare, the output is the same. How to evaluate and create one that has the best of both? Uh, this is what I'm asking about, how to evaluate one chatbot and two. So if you've got a single system you've built, how do you know if it's good enough to launch? Basically, what should you be tracking at that point? And then if you have two systems, how do you compare them? How do you decide if you want to go with like a combination of the two or one of the two approaches? Yeah, I think those are great questions. So do you want to kick this off, Tayfun?
Sure. This is actually something we are gonna be working on in the next year as well, like evaluating the success of bots that have been created. And I guess it's a fairly complex or many-sided question
Mm-hmm.
in how to evaluate a bot that you have trained. And there are basically a few things that you can look at, I guess. And those are what paths the customer has went through. So are they going through a happy path. Have the bot being able to answer their questions correctly, or there have been like fallbacks. So there's like fallback events where if the bot doesn't know how to answer something, it falls back to certain events. But yeah, it can answer with certain text like I don't know how to answer that, or it can reference a documentation page, for example, or something like that. It can also hand the chat to a customer agent, like human agent, if it is not able to answer that question. So all those, I guess, all of these are kind of data points that you can use. And you can use that through either like Rasa X, where you can see some events, you can search them, you can see how much they are hit, or you can the events are published to a message broker. So if you have a custom solution, you can do that as well. And another thing that we have is with Rasa version 3, we have success markers. So this is like a new feature, which kind of enables you to provide kind of like markers around your dialogue, your conversations, and you can basically mark them as successful or not, and then you can see how they are hit in your conversations. So it runs offline, and when you run it Rasa using the Rasa command line interface, CLI, you basically get a file output with data on how the which of the markers that you were hit, and from that data you can kind of deduce if your bot is working successfully, answering things in the way you want, or if it kind of falling back to different answers. And in that case, maybe you will need to provide some extra stories that so that the customers are happier in the following iterations. Basically, when you retrain it, so it's when we say conversation driven development a lot.
CDD.
CDD, yeah, and that basically means like the bot is always evolving, because your customers are gonna be they're human, right? So they will talk to the bot in different ways that you might not imagine beforehand, and the conversations will evolve as well. So you will have to look at the conversations and then to fine tune it and retrain the bot and continue that probably.
Definitely. Yeah, so just to sort of pick out some of the specific events you mentioned that you might want to measure and measure changes over time. So the fallback policy being triggered, which means the person's trying to do something your assistant can't handle. Sort of successful completion of tasks, which you use a marker to count and then pull out from your tracker store the number of times it happens. Unsuccessful completion. We recently, if you subscribe to our newsletter, I don't know exactly what email ones it went out to, but we recently shared out the Forrester Total Economic Impact Report for Rasa. So some of the specific KPIs that were more on the business side than the development side that they mentioned were payback. So if you invest, let's say, $100,000 worth of engineering time and compute in building the assistant, how long does it take to get that investment back? Less than 13 months. I'm just reading these. I don't have this memorized. Containment rate. So that's how many of the conversations stay in the assistant as opposed to being handed off to the human agent, like Tayfun mentioned. Call center agent efficiency. I don't know how you'd measure that, but I guess it would be like volume of calls perhaps per time unit. And then, of course, total cost saving. So do you save the business money? So that would be sort of more on the business side, more on the development side. So getting the information to measure all of the specific factors that Tayfun mentioned, you definitely do want to prototype with people, which I think I think it was clear from your explanation, but I just want to like put a little flag on it and wave the flag around a little bit. Um, you're going to need to have a suite of test users, and one way to compare bots is to have, similar test users using each bot, see which one you have more of the successful events and fewer of the unsuccessful events with. And if they're really equivalent, then I would do the one that's cheaper. That's my preference there. Yeah. Anything else to add there about KPIs in general? We've got a couple other questions, but I know I steered us in a little bit of a different direction.
We are going to be working on some extra some features for evaluating bots in the coming new year as well. So
Keep your eyes peeled. TBD. We'll tell you more when it's done. Yeah. Right. Thank you. Godelian, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, says, a fellow Turkish engineer just joined Rasa. Exciting. I do not know if you are Turkish, but if you are, I think you have a fellow here. I'm curious, so this is for Tayfun, how did you find out about Rasa? Were you using it in your previous job? And what was it that drew you to apply to Rasa?
um, actually, I didn't know about Rasa much beforehand. I was contacted, so Waishi
Mm,
from Rasa contacted me, and then I looked at Rasa. I was kind of on the market at that time, so I
mm,
wasn't working. And when I checked out Rasa, like the open source software, I checked out, I cloned the GitHub repo,
mm,
I looked at the code, I looked at the issues on GitHub and the pull requests, and then the documentation. The documentation was very, very good. I checked a lot of different things, and also like the AI ML aspects
mm,
of
mm,
Rasa, so machine learning AI um, kind of interested me,
mm.
and chatbots, of course. Um, Even though like chatbots, I think they were really hyped like 5 years ago or
Yep.
so. When it was so hyped, I wasn't really interested. I didn't like to get on the bandwagon
Mm,
wagon
mm,
when it was like that. But I, in my opinion, it's a huge a potential. It has a huge
mm,
potential, and I feel AI ML kind of catching up
mm,
with the expectations, um, and like with the latest developments in like TensorFlow and other libraries around it. I feel it's getting there,
mm,
and so I wanted to learn more about it. Wanted to contribute to these tools, and the other thing was, of course, the culture was really nice, very open, very
mm,
transparent, um, remote first, very diverse. Diversity is
mm.
very, very important at Rasa. So all those things kind of compelled me to work here, to accept the job. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you. So, oop, one sec, I missed a scammer, a spammer, and just move that. Um, yeah, we're very happy to have you. Uh, Amina wants to know, is there an example where markers are used? So getting back to the marker question, I had a quick look on the docs. An example would help me have a better understanding. So I did. It doesn't work. I'm going to put a big red flag in it right now and say that as written, it doesn't work because you need a tracker store running for it to work, and you can't do that locally. Big, big waving flag. But I do have a code example on my GitHub from the live coding last week. Again, it's on my GitHub because it doesn't work as written because the tracker store is not set up. But I can show you what it looks like. And you can of course go back and watch the you can watch the recording of the live stream. It's to build a chatbot that plays rock paper scissors. So obviously the height of sophistication, very, very complex. Oh, somebody filed an issue. So you will add a markers file here, so markers.yaml, and inside of it you will have, so this is the name of the marker, this can be whatever you like, and here this is a very simple one. It just will record it every time this action play rock paper scissors is triggered, so it just counts the number of times that somebody tries to play rock paper scissors. And if I did have a working tracker store with, let's say, I don't know. What do people use most often for tracker stores?
SQLite, maybe? SQLite, Rachel?
SQLite or whatever you're using for your tracker store. I know there's a lot of homebrew, not homebrew like the Mac thing, homebrew like people using different configurations for their tracker store. So I would have my tracker store up and running. I would use the command line utility, and then it would go through the tracker store, pull out information about every time this marker was detected, and put it in a CSV. And I believe I actually did that. So I should have a very helpful empty CSV here. Yeah, so you can see that this is just empty because, again, I didn't have a tracker store running, but this is what the syntax looks like. And this is what the output would show up like. And you can just, send this to your data scientists, do your analysis yourself, etc. Is there a better example that you would point people towards, Tayfun? Because I don't think it's been added to any of the.
I remember some videos from maybe Asil also did, but I'm not sure if they were public or were they in the Rasa 3 launch 3.0 launch videos or not.
There was, yes, so the launch event, the 3.0 launch event, there's also timestamps on that video, so you should be able to like scroll over the bottom and click into it. I think ACL had some examples, but this is what it would look like in a chatbot. And we also have a blog post that I think, yeah, so the blog post also has more detailed examples of more exciting types of things.
Yes, that's a good one.
So yeah, I hope that answers your question. And then this blog post is markers in Rasa Open Source 3.0, and it went out last week on the 6th. Yeah. And then, I got to scroll up. There were a lot of questions. All right, so let's do our best to get through these. Yeah. So someone with a very long username says, I'm using Rasa for 25 days. Best tool I've ever seen for bot creation. Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you like it. And if you run into any issues, please feel free to ask on our forum, which is the link just popped up down there. It's forum.rasa.com. And yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right. Next question. Amina wanted to know what the source was here. So this is github.com/rctatman. Again, this is on my personal GitHub. Rasa 3.0 rock, paper, scissors chatbot. And then if you go back and you look at the recording of the live stream from last week, it'll be linked in that thing as well. I said last week. It might have been 2 weeks ago. I'm having a hard time remembering specifically when in December stuff happened. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind of a month. I think for everybody at Rasa with our very successful launches, we're delighted that it's going well, but it was so much work. It was so much work. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Rachel. Definitely. Time is just flying by.
Absolutely. Simon wants to know, when will Rasa X be available to work with Rasa 3? TBD.
Yeah, I think our teams in Rasa is working on the new release, which will be supporting Rasa Open Source 3.0. So hopefully at some
Soon,
point. Yeah.
soon TM. We absolutely understand that it's important. It is also pretty complex, and because Rasa X is open source, Rasa X is not open source. Rasa X is closed source, but free to use. The community edition is. So it's like we can't rely on our wonderful contributors for any help with that. We gotta figure it out ourselves internally. So shout out to our contributors, by the way. Yes, we will announce it when it's up, and we know that this is can be a struggle, but we also didn't want to keep y'all waiting on 3.0 because lots of really significant problem fixes in it that I think really help. Hopefully, everyone's finding very helpful. It sounds like y'all are. Amina says, when you say the one which is cheaper, in what way? The one that consumes less resources, what would the resources be? Yeah, great question. So I'm mainly talking about compute resources there. So whatever, requires less storage, is smaller. Maybe latency might be an issue for you. So it might be worth it to spend more on compute resources to increase response time, to parallelize things more, whichever one costs less to retrain, particularly if you're retraining a lot. I don't know, what are some other, I think I've hit most of the major ones, but are there any other cost or feasibility considerations you'd include?
I would say simplest is the best. Like
Yeah.
if the two solutions are equal in terms of the output, I would go for the simpler one, just because it would be easier to maintain. And of course, like developers are a bit expensive as well, so easier to maintain one, easier to develop one would be the preferred solution, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Great point. There might also be specific dependencies that one solution uses that the other one doesn't, that perhaps your security team has strong feelings about, in which case you should listen to them. I think that's top of mind for a lot of folks these days. And Goodland says, thanks for sharing about what drew you to Rasa and your journey. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Rob has I think these are all one question, so I'm going to be reading for a bit. I'm struggling to access the confidence of the previously detected entities before deciding if I want to fill a form slot. Is this possible? Following use case. The user has a problem with a product. The chatbot starts a conversation after some messages. We decide we want to report an incident and start a form. Now we want to pre-fill our form with as much information as possible from the previous conversation. However, we only want to automatically fill the slots if we are pretty sure that the item was correctly recognized. Otherwise, we would ask the user to confirm. Any best practices or advice for this? Yeah. I believe. So I'm just pulling up something now, and feel free to.
Sure. It sounds a bit advanced use case. Like in Rasa, if you run Rasa shell with debug mode, for example, you will see a lot of debug output on like the confidences of various predictions. So that might help, but I guess what we want here is kind of like customizing the actions depending on the confidence values. I'm not 100% sure. I guess like with custom actions, what we want in a custom action is to be able to use these confidence values and then affect the next action. But I'm not 100% sure how we could do that.
Yeah, great question. I would agree. This is a more complex use case, and I don't think I ran into this in my first 2 months at Rasa. So, yes. So I believe the fallback policy might have been deprecated in 3.0, but the objects should still be accessible, perhaps. So there is a built-in method for detecting if the NLU confidence falls below a specific threshold. And if you were using this policy, then you would set it in your config file as part of the fallback policy, like, hey, if you're not this confident, don't fill the slot. And that's actually what I'd recommend in general. So I would say that in this case where you're not entirely sure, you have slots, right? These are things that are storing the variables over your conversation. You would want them to be filled as the user is, discussing with the bot. And then when you start a form, any of the slots that are already filled, the user won't be asked about. And I think the easiest solution here is not to fill the slot until you have a certain confidence threshold. Caveat about confidence thresholds. Confidence is roughly a measure of how similar your current item that you're seeing is to things in the training data. It is not a measure of accuracy. I think a lot of people know that, but it's worth rechecking up on. So you can have a very accurate, prediction that is correct with a very low confidence, or you could have an inaccurate prediction with a very high confidence. So it's not the same as accuracy, which is, I don't know that that's super intuitive. I think you can think of examples that are similar from your life, but it can sometimes be a little bit hard to keep that in mind when you're working on a system. Yeah, so I would change the threshold for setting a slot in the first place. Would be my general recommendation for you, Rob, in this particular situation. Yeah. I don't know that you're going to be able to use the fallback policy option with 3.0, though, unfortunately. Do we have a... Because I am seeing that this is only in 2.x. Let me see if I can find fallback. More information on the fallback, because I think that that's going to be very relevant. Out of scope, NLU fallback, NLU classifier, feedback classifier, which is, well, it doesn't have like a little deprecation method here. Which version of the docs am I in? Yeah, that should be good. Yeah. So you should be able to still use the fallback policy to set the NLU fallback separately from the dialog policy fallback, even though, second side note, as of 3.0, that distinction is completely artificial. Previously, it was sort of a reflex of the original organization of the Rasa codebase. Since we now have a graph architecture which can be arbitrary, the distinction there is really more on what is output than the set of policies which create that output. Does that make sense? That might have been too abstract. I don't know that that's super helpful. Yeah, I hope that helped. I don't know if you have anything else to add here, Tayfun. I'm just going to end this section unless somebody wants to jump in.
No, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Amina says MongoDB for tracker store, ? I feel like I have seen people mentioning it. I cannot tell you whether or not it's a good idea. Tayfun,
Yeah, I'm not sure either, because right now, like, the tracker store uses a kind of like relational schema-based backends. So like SQLite or PostgreSQL, those are the ones that I have used. So I'm not 100% sure on like MongoDB. Yeah,
I would take that question to the forums. Like I said, I know that there's a lot of variation in what people would like to use for their tracker stores. Put it that way. Assam says, I graduated. Congrats from university. Thank you to everyone who contributed to Rasa environment for making it part of my graduation project. That's fantastic. Congratulations. Happy graduation. If you're looking for a job, we are hiring. And I know that I'm saying that a lot. We're really hiring. And Samuel says, just saying, love all the support and documentation y'all have for Rasa. Well, thank you so much. It's a lot of work, and it's good to know that it's appreciated. I'm certainly glad. I know that Tayfun can definitely.
No, definitely. Yeah, I actually did I had a pull request for documentation today as well for one of the Slack channels, Slack connectors that we had.
Oh,
So yeah, it's definitely a high priority for us to have like good documentation, and hopefully it's helpful for everyone else as well.
definitely. Yeah, and also feel free, just sort of like for the community as a whole, to if you have any specific documentation requests, feel. I can't guarantee that we'll get to them right away, but we would appreciate if you made them, or if you wanted
Definitely,
to contribute, you could help with it.
definitely.
Yeah. Uh, Amina says, I have a chatbot for insurance that provides users with links. So I try to qualify their intent need. Tayfun, as a backend engineer, what do you recommend? Adding links to the solutions in a message as output, or let the backend team handle it, meaning I say solution one is needed here, and then they send the user to the right page. I hope that's clear.
Yeah. So I guess the first one is kind of like more static solution,
Mm-hmm.
static response where you have the links in the messages themselves. And the second one Amina is mentioning is kind of like custom actions, maybe, where you might get the link um, or the message itself dynamically from a database or from a human agent or wherever you want. So I guess it depends on your use case. Like if your links are already known, if they're not really changing much, if they're kind of static, it can be in the messages themselves. Otherwise, if you want to be able to return dynamic links through another API endpoint or through a database lookup or anything else, I guess it could be made to work with a custom action as well. The custom action one solution could be a bit more complicated one, but depending on your use case, that might be the best solution.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If you're going to be updating the links, let's say, I know that I wouldn't want to do that more than once a year. That just like is a random point to pick. Then it might make sense to invest in the dynamic solution. Mm.
Yeah, I guess the trade-off is like you said, retraining the model
Mm.
when you update the messages, or having a separate custom action, a server that's running and then returning like dynamic links, dynamic messages.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off.
I hope that's helpful, Amina. Um, Rob says, so about the NLU fallback, understood. I'll check it out. Thanks for the help. Yeah, hope it goes well. Feel free to ask questions on the forum if it doesn't. Hopefully that won't be needed. Um, Great question for Amina. Can training time be a KPI to evaluate the chatbot? Absolutely. Yeah. So I think this, I am choosing to take this in a slightly different direction than what you asked. But I think this is something that, particularly with something like fine tuning language models, is genuinely an important thing to consider. So I get a lot of questions. I'm sure Tayfun, you get a lot of questions as well about sort of like BERT, these large language models, GPT-3, T5 maybe. Actually, I don't know that anyone's asked me about T5, but these sort of similar big language models. Hey, I want to use these in my chatbot. It may be worth the time and money investment, potentially. Um, but the thing about a very large model is it takes a long time to tune. For your specific application, if the model can handle the domain, the topic that you are working in very well and in a robust way, you may not need to fine tune. I wouldn't count on that. Absolutely wouldn't count on that. Especially if you're working outside of English. So there's actually a really good paper by some folks working on Vietnamese and building chatbots in Vietnamese. Let me pull that up really quickly, where they were looking at multilingual BERT, fast text, and I think just like the Mm, maybe like the spacey basic. Let me see if I can find the paper first and then stop trying to make stuff up. um, I'm looking for a specific paper. Okay, so the paper is Enhancing Rasa NLU Model for Vietnamese Chatbot. Um, and I found a link where I can't download it. Let me find the link where I can download it, and then I'll pull it up. Anyway, the point of what I'm trying to make here is that they found for Vietnamese specifically, even though additional fine tuning of the MBERT model did improve, the output of the model over time, it would have taken more data than they had to improve it enough that it was better than the fast text embeddings. So if they had had, twice, three times as much data as they had to train and fine tune, then it might have made sense to include the MBERT fine tuning in their work. But since they didn't, it didn't really make sense for them in their particular situation. Oh, finally. Uh, Sorry, I was frantically clicking links in another thing, and this is from 2021, and it is by I'm going to say these wrong. I'm so sorry. Nguyen Taimai Trong and Maxim Sherbakov. Again, apologies if I'm saying those wrong. And where's the chart? Where's the helpful chart? Here we go. Oh, so just the basic TensorFlow embeddings that were trained on their training data. And this is this bottom line here, which is an orange for those of you who can distinguish orange from green. As you can see, as the number of intents here goes up, so did the performance, but never enough to, with their data set size, outperform TensorFlow and FastText. So I think this is an example where it could, in a counterfactual situation where they had a lot more data, make sense to use the large language model instead of the smaller models. But for their particular situation, it didn't. So if you are thinking about using large language models, I think it's really important to, maybe do some experiments, really consider the amount of data that you have. And then they were also, so this is F1 on this side, which is the harmonic mean of accuracy and precision. It's basically an accuracy measure. You can think of it that way. So for them in their situation, it never made sense for BERT. And even if they had had enough data that it did make sense, it wouldn't necessarily be faster to fine tune the model. So I think you'd have to be in a situation where you had a lot of training data and you really cared about a small improvements in performance enough to make an argument to, let's say, the product manager that you need, $10,000 worth of compute time, and that it would make like there would be a return on that investment in terms of the overall chatbot performance. And I would say that's most likely to happen in situations where you have a very large assistant that's handling a lot of conversations and where, a 0.01% improvement in F1 means, 10,000, that's quite a lot, 1,000 conversations a day are not being handed to a human, because in that case, it makes sense. So it's a balancing act whether or not it makes sense for you in your situation, and something like number of hours of additional work from people across the company might be a metric that you look at. Yeah, I don't know, that was a very was a little bit rambly, but I hope that I'm making a helpful point about you know very large models that are developed at very large companies for their specific needs are not necessarily always going to be the most helpful when you are building a custom application for you. I'm not saying don't use their products. Right, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're building your own, it makes sense to evaluate methods based not just on accuracy, but also on accuracy with your amount of training data, with the amount of money that you are willing to spend on various aspects of the tool. That was a very long-winded tangent. I'm sorry, Tayfun. Yeah, do you have anything else to add there? I know that I went off a little bit.
No, I think it made sense. I guess the gist is that there's always going to be trade-offs, and
Absolutely.
just test whatever you want to do with different models. And make an informed choice, basically. So you can see like the trade-offs, if it's going to take a long time to train, or how the accuracy is.
Mhm.
And then depending on all the data that you have, you can make an informed choice on which path to follow. Otherwise, just deciding without any data might not lead to the best optimal solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really important to do, conversation driven development, like you brought up earlier, right? It's important to have conversations and have your assistant have conversations, not just you talk to people and see how it goes. Yeah. All right. So that was a very long tangent, and I hope it answered your question, Amina. Um, Skylacking says, is there a timeline for Rasa 3.0 and Rasa X compatibility? I can make no promises. Sorry. Again, soon TM. We know that it's important. It's a priority for us. No, not that I can share. All right. Samuel says, sorry if this is a lazy question. You came to an office hours and asked it. I don't think that's lazy. What would the most exciting academic projects using Rasa in the real world implementations be? I'm working in a human computer interaction projects and wondering what's out there. Oh, exciting projects using Rasa. Yeah. I mean, I really like this Vietnamese chatbot paper because I think it's a great discussion of things in production. I'm not doing it currently, but we had a reading group for a while where I was reading papers. Maybe I'll get back to it at some point. And some of those were projects using Rasa. If you have any specific ones, feel free to jump in, Tayfun. I'm gonna do something real quick in another window.
Yeah, I don't think I have like any favorite one. So, as you said, we have like research teams. We have research engineers
Mhm.
working on focused mainly on the research aspects,
Mhm.
and they are always like sharing articles or new developments
Mhm.
in general, like for conversation driven development, or like chatbots. And I do kind of skim read a lot of them, but I don't have like a favorite one at the moment, really. I
Huh.
don't really.
Huh. Also, I'll let you know if it continues being a problem, but it sounds like your voice was being canceled there a little bit by something. Um, my recommendation is, especially if you're working on an academic project, so this is Google Scholar. You can use, your favorite citation management software. Semantic Scholar would be another good one. And this is the paper that people tend to cite when they're talking about Rasa by Tom and everyone else. So I would go to the cited by, and then if you're looking for recent work, sort by the most current recent year. And yeah, there looks like there's some good stuff here. Soloist. Okay, so this is a methods paper. Oh, this one looks cool. A conversational agent for querying Italian patient information leaflets and improving health literacy. That sounds nice. A conversational agent for empowering genomic data extraction and analysis. That could also be good. ACM transactions is a pretty good venue. So this is what I do when I'm curious about what the academic community is using Rasa for, is that I'll reverse citation search the paper that people tend to cite. So yeah, start your lit review there. And in true academic advisor fashion, I have answered your question by giving you work. All right. Uh, all right. Amina has another question. Amina always asks great questions. I have a value. It's being filled in the wrong slot. The value that I have is being put in a synonym, so it's not the value that exists in the example. Could this be the cause? I didn't succeed in having a good use of a synonym. It's never filled in the slot, for example. If credit card is my value, whenever I say credit, it's not being collected in the right slot/entity. Oh, great question. I mean, I know you're in the middle of a big project right now, and it might slow down your timelines, But this is a situation where I would say switching to Rasa, updating to Rasa 3.0 will really help because of the explicit slot mappings. So, I mean, that's the maybe a little bit unhelpful answer, but I would strongly recommend a Rasa 3.0 update because this is one of the specific problems that we were trying to address with that and making things explicit. Do you have other maybe less disappointing to hear advice, David?
No, I think your advice was very well, very good in that. As you said, with Rasa 3.0, things got a bit more explicit rather than implicit, where entities with the same name were filled in the slots automatically. So in the previous version, so yeah, slots got a bit more explicit. And regarding synonyms, I'm not sure if that would make that would fail what she wanted to do, what the customer wanted to do. In that, like, synonyms are basically if you use one or the other, the slot gets a value, right?
It's for
So,
entity. I believe so. Synonyms are at the entity level, so you'll provide synonyms for the entity, and then the synonym will be mapped to the main entity.
yeah,
I believe.
yeah. So I'm not sure if that would kind of prevent or fail slots. Yeah, but sounds like if maybe it might be a good question for the forum as well, with like a simple chatbot configuration files, and then asking why the slot is not filled or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it might be helpful to see the code. I definitely agree to figure out exactly what's going on with the synonyms. But for the wrong slots being filled, 3.0 is going to be your best bet.
Yeah.
Oh.
And also running, just remember running Rasa in interactive mode or using shell with debug mode. You can see like what the steps were taken in filling the slot. So it gives you a lot of information to kind of help you debug why some slots are filled or not.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps. So we've got a question from Rob. Is the word embedding in the default Rasa project created from the NLU examples, or is it a pre-trained model loaded for the configured language? I'm working on collecting contextual information and software requirement elicitation during user feedback. Pretty excited, IMHO. Oh, that was a response to Samuel Eyes, who's working on health projects. But anything is interesting. Yeah. No, I don't believe so. So if you're not familiar, Rasa NLU Examples is a document that we maintain that basically is a way to kickstart your training data when you're training your assistant. Our default pipeline, is this. So this is just from the docs. The count vectors featureizer will count the vectors in your training data. So I don't believe it's pre-trained. And then diet classifier does come pre-trained for English specifically. And do you know a corpus off the top of your head, Tayfun?
I don't know really.
I'm just gonna look at the paper. We'll pull that up real quick. Da, da, da. Let's see. So this is the blog post. Da, da, da. This is from a while ago. The video. Oh, it doesn't have a link to the paper. Oh, this must be a little bit of an older blog post. Yeah. So it might be a conversation. Just from this, it looks like it might be a combination of BERT, Convert, and Glove. I believe Convert, which are education. not educational, conversational embeddings are no longer open sourced. I think that was Convert specifically. So it was open sourced and then it was unopen sourced later on. Bert, y'all know. And then Glove is uh, also contextual embeddings, and I believe those are out of Stanford. It's been a while since I I touched Glove myself with anything. So yes, so they are pre-trained. And I'm gonna pull up the paper. I'm gonna see if I can find it, and I'll just let you look at the file there when I say it. Yeah, I don't know if you have any other Scholar. Open up a Scholar tab. I don't know if you have any other insights on the training data.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. The one thing I can mention is that we will be working on adding different recipe supports, supporting different types of recipes. So like the pipeline and policies right now is a YAML file. The recipe is the default recipe, but we are working on making it much more configurable and customizable. So the graph with the graph architecture with the version 3 will be much more easy to customize and to however you want it to work. Yeah.
Dense features can be used, can be any pre-trained word embeddings. Cool. Which one do we use? Okay, so we use Convert. So Convert is, I believe, trained on Reddit data, and it is specifically a conversational embedding. Ooh, excuse me. trying to breathe spit. It's not breathable. Yes, so that is your answer. I hope that is helpful. And that's what's in the default. And Convert also is English only. Maybe not obvious, but that is the case. So if you were going to use the default config, you'd probably want to replace the pre-trained embeddings with pre-trained embeddings for your language. And if you don't got pre-trained embeddings for your language, pre-training embeddings for your language, which I realize is kind of a big ask and a lot of lifting, but yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, more discussion in the chat about what folks are working on, house projects, and then contextual information for software requirements, which is I think that actually sounds really interesting, but also I'm a nerd, so. And then Amina says, I'll work on the update to Rasa 3.0 soon. Thanks, guys. Great answers, and welcome, Tayfun.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Nick has a question. Do we have end of life for Rasa versions? So I think this is a question about sort of like continued support for, say, Rasa 2 or Rasa 1.
So yeah, I think we support like the last minor of the latest minor of the last major. So version 2.8 will be supported. Yeah. That's basically that's all I can say. So like all bug fix security issues or bug fixes will be, I think, probably contributed to 2.8. But new features going to be probably on version 3.
Yeah, that is also my understanding of our current state. So yes, so if you're still using it, again, we'll fix critical security issues or bugs, but no additional functionality will be added. Yeah. Oh, Nick has a question about your favorite, Rasa Interactive. How can we pass an empty value in Rasa Interactive?
Empty message.
I think so. Empty value is what the question says, but yeah, let's say empty message just as an example. Apologies if that's not what you meant, Nick.
Empty value or empty message. I'm not sure actually. Like when you press enter, what does interactive do? it just continues listening. I guess the Rasa bot is continues listening.
I guess because nothing's being passed to the NLU.
Yeah. Um,
I guess my question is
is the use
why?
case? Yeah. What is the use case?
Hmm.
Um, why do you want? So the bot should get an empty value, but for what reason? Like what
Mm.
would be the answer for that? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe for something like um, if someone's sending a really long message and they have the first part of the message and then they add like an empty line in the middle and then continue to the second part of the really long message. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure
maybe.
really. I haven't thought about this
Yeah.
use case. Um, it's kind of like a bit edge case,
Hmm. Yeah.
I think.
Ken says to clarify, empty message, it comes up with a list of options. Oh, so if you empty just an empty message, the Rasa Interactive is like, so what do you want me to do about it? Hmm.
Hmm. I'm not 100% sure really.
Yeah, I think that's a forum question. Let me pop up the forum link for y'all. Yeah, I agree with Tayfun. I'd want to know what the use case is.
Yeah, it's a bit of an edge case, I guess. But definitely, depending on the use case, we could look at it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Rob says, because I'm working on a German project. Oh, cool. I'm no pre-trained model is loaded. I'm pretty surprised that it works so well. I thought the language tag in the config.yaml specifies a word embedding model. Okay, it's been a while since I looked into this. The last time that I looked into this, which was a while ago, it didn't. But I don't know if that's the case anymore. Do you know off the top of your head, Tayfun?
I'm not sure really.
No.
Yeah.
I think it was more for, at least historically, the developer to look at.
You okay?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. Sorry. uh, just some gunk in there. Um, yeah. Uh, and Herzon says, how can we pass the sender value in Rasa Interactive? Sender value.
Is that sender ID
I'm
or
guessing that sounds right.
conversation ID?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Rasa Interactive is set.
Mm-hmm.
It's fixed. I'm not sure if we can change it in Rasa Interactive.
Mm.
So I guess the idea is to change to a different context
Mm-hmm.
in the conversation. So like someone is talking to the bot, and then you want kind of like someone else's starts talking to, and the context starts anew or restarts,
Yeah.
I guess.
I'd probably just use restart if that's what I wanted, like slash restart to restart the conversation and clear out the slots, unless
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
slots persisting.
So yeah, you can do slash restart to restart it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you can also use the web API.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can make curl requests, and then you can use sender ID in the JSON payload
Mm-hmm.
in addition to message. So message and then sender ID, and in sender ID you can send anything you want, and you can change it to have kind of like a new context.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that helps. Yeah, and again, if you need more details, I'd probably head to the forum and ask there. And we are slightly over time, so if you have time, it looks like we've got a little bit more discussion of the Rasa interactive thing. But if you've got something after this, I don't want to keep you.
No, I'm fine, sure.
Okay, great. Um, so if you're in Rasa Interactive, pressing enter, it brings up a list of options: continue, undo last, fork, start fresh, export, and quit.
Right.
But that doesn't happen in the shell. So this would be
Yeah,
Rasa Interactive and Rasa X, it sounds like.
right. Yeah, so Rasa Interactive is kind of different. It's Rasa Shell is basically you just talk to the bot, whereas Rasa Interactive, you kind of have more control over it, and you can also train it. You can say like, this is my message, and then these are the entities, etc. And you can say like, this is not the intent, that this is not the correct intent, and like this is the correct intent, etc. So you are in more control with the Rasa Interactive, whereas Rasa Shell is more for just testing how your bot works.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rasa Interactive is data labeling. You're labeling the turns and what you're about to do next, and you're producing stories and additional NLU examples.
Yeah.
And then here someone says, I'm using the sender and API to send a WhatsApp number. I'd probably do that in a custom action. Yeah, and Rob says, so that would mean that the default config is running embeddings from the English Reddit posts. Now I'm really surprised. I don't know that that's the case either. I will admit, it's been a little bit since I really spent a lot of time digging into the default config. So I'm not 100% sure which way it's happening. It might just be training fresh embeddings based on your data and then feeding those into Diet, potentially. I would check out some of the videos on Diet that Vincent has done, because I am not 100% sure how it fits into our current pipeline, but I have read the paper. So that's where I am right now. All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up here so we don't keep you forever, Tayfun. Thank you so much, everybody, for asking questions. If you have more that come up, which one is it? This one. Head on over to the forums. This is going to be the last office hour for the year, so no more in December. Hopefully everyone's taking some time off to relax and recharge. We will be back in January at some point. It'll happen. We'll announce it on YouTube. Thank you so much for making time to join us today, Tayfun. I think folks really appreciated it. I certainly do. And yeah. And this is the last stream, so have a safe and healthy rest of 2021, and we'll see you in 2022.
Thanks, everyone.